Okay, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the October 6th special meeting of Chico Unified School District Board of Education. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. If you could stand, please. I pledge allegiance Thank you. Okay, the next item is announcements. Are there any announcements? Seeing none, we'll move on to our consent calendar. Is there an item on the consent calendar that anyone needs to pull and to address later?
I'd like to pull item 3.3.1.
Any others? Okay, then we'll move to all of the items on the consent calendar with the exception of that last one. All those in favor? Oh, I'm sorry. We do need a motion in a second. Thank you.
I'll second.
Thank you. Okay, by voice vote, all those in favor? Ms. Dalby?
Dalby, aye.
Robinson, aye. Okay, because we don't have our other two members yet, they are expected through the door any minute, we will delay that last consent item until another member arrives. Okay, our next item is the discussion action calendar, educational services. I believe Mr. Marchant is presenting tonight.
Thank you, Ms. Robinson. Tonight is our board workshop. If I could get somebody to pull up the presentation. Our two board liaisons for our board workshop for systems of student support in this USD Learning and Recovery were Caitlin Dalby and President Eileen Robinson. At this time, I'm going to call up Christy and Chase to come on up and introduce themselves, their job, and go over the first slide, which is the multi-tier system of supports, or MTSS.
I am a teacher on special assignment working with Christy at the MTSS program.
MTSS stands for Multi-Tiered System of Supports, and when we think about these supports, we're looking at the whole child. We're looking at the academic needs, the social-emotional learning needs of our students, as well as the behavioral needs. And tonight you'll hear from staff who will share how they support students at their site or the sites at which they work in those three areas, their academic, social, emotional, and behavioral needs.
And one of the major goals that we have for Chico Unified with the MTSS program is we're looking to create, or not so much create, but make uniform the interventions and the supports that we have for those three things site-wide on every site in Chico Unified, so that we can create a place where, like, it doesn't matter which student goes to which site, the similar support services are going to be there, they're going to be identifiable, and they're going to be able to attain those things. And the big driver here too is using data for all those decision-making things, whether it's collecting data on who needs a SEL support, an academic support, or a behavior support.
So once again, MTSS stands for Multi-Tiered System of Support, and this graphic shows the different tiers when we think about the supports that are being provided to the students at our sites. All students receive academic, behavioral, and social emotional supports at our sites. We know some students, based on data, as Chase mentioned, will need additional supports. And so they are in that some students category. And then some students will even need additional intensive support for academic, behavioral, or social emotional needs. And so tonight you're going to hear from our positive behavior intervention and supports lead in the district, as well as a student from Chico Junior, about how the PBIS structures on a school campus can really support the social, emotional, and behavioral needs of the whole student body. You're going to hear from our two of our special education coordinators and counselors about the social emotional supports that are provided on a school campus. And then you're also going to hear from one of our elementary reading teachers about the reading support she's able to provide at her elementary school site this year, as well as two Chico High teachers and students, and about the academic courses, specifically career and technical education courses that are available to students, especially with the change in their schedule for this year.
Thank you. So academic supports, LCAP goal number 1, provide academic instruction and interventions to ensure students' learning and high achievement for each and every student. Some of the highlights we have under that: elementaries are full-time reading teachers, our reading pals, extra aid time to support reading groups, and before and after school tutoring. At this time, I would like to bring up one of our reading teachers, Jennifer Denzel from Shasta Elementary, to talk about the program.
Hi, my name is Jen Denzel, and like Jay said, I'm a reading teacher at Shasta Elementary. As a reading teacher, I offer Tier 3 small group reading instruction to 22 first and second graders who have yet to meet their grade level benchmarks in reading. So what do? So our small groups meet every day, Monday through Friday, 25 to 30 minutes each session. For these groups, I've set specific reading goals for each student based on diagnostic reading assessment data, and then I design targeted lessons to help each student meet their goals as quickly as possible. So in every lesson, if ever you came to watch me, you'd see lessons in skills being taught, such as phonemic awareness, phonics, decoding, and spelling. And each of these are explicitly taught and then practiced to the point of mastery. Having a reading teacher at Shasta has been a game changer for our site. I can't express it enough. It's like how it's been dry for forever, and then today it just sprinkles a little bit and you feel this sense of hope. Like, yes, we needed this. Research tells us that students who are behind in reading by the end of first grade will not catch up unless they are given targeted, skillful intervention and as early as possible. And I can say this year that because of our Tier 1 team and the extra support of some newly hired reading intervention aides, and also myself being full-time, this is the first year that I can say with confidence that every single first grader and second grader at Shasta School who is performing below reading expectations will get the opportunity to get reading intervention this year. So I can't tell you how grateful I am to have this position and to be able to share that good news with you, and to know that there's a reading teacher not just at Shasta but at every elementary school site just brings me great hope. So thank you for giving me the chance to share.
Thank you for being here tonight. I appreciate it. Some of the other highlights we want to talk about is our foster homeless and youth teacher on special assignment. That's Mclaughlin. She's in our audience today. There she is. You guys met her last board meeting, and she again helped support academics and getting what our foster and our homeless students need to be successful. Also, I want to talk about Secondary Marsh after school program, Chico High block schedule, and Pleasant Valley 0 and 7th period are some of the other highlights that we have at the secondary academic supports. But at this time, I'm going to bring up two Chico High teachers, Ronnie and Lindsay, if they can come up and talk about the positives of the block schedule. And if they want to bring up their students too, that would be great, and introduce their students.
Good evening, you guys. My name is Lindsay Swickard. I am one of the agriculture teachers at Chico High School. And today I have Haley Christopher and Jacob Fairbanks, as well as Ronnie Cockrell. So I'm going to have the students go ahead and talk first, and then I can answer questions. And Ronnie and I will also add a few other things in there. Haley, you want to go first?
Sure.
You got this, I promise.
Hi, I'm Haley Christopher. I'm a senior at Chico High. I'm also part of the agricultural pathway. I personally really enjoy this block schedule that was created because personally, my first 2 years of Chico High, there were a lot of classes that I wanted to take, but there's also a lot of required ones that we have to do. And looking back, especially as a senior about to move on, you know, I do wish I was able to take these classes, and I'm very happy that with these added classes and added time that I'm able to take more electives and classes that may pertain to my future goals. And I also enjoy the also possible extra time for the older upperclassmen, so we are able to take other opportunities, like I am doing Butte College classes right now, and I'm still able to do that while with my schedule. Thank you.
Good afternoon, my name is Jacob Fairbanks. I'm also a senior at Chico High, and I'm part of the agriculture program. I spend a lot of time in the welding department with Ronnie, so the block schedule also helps out with working on projects. So we have a lot of time setting up our machines and taking down, cleaning up, just to keep that welding environment safe. So that also is a good thing with the block schedule. Another thing, I have work a full-time job at our local bike shop, so that kind of helps, you know, bring in some money for odds and ends, and yeah, so thank you.
So,
Yes.
thank you, Madam President. So you work a full-time job?
Yeah, I put in just about 72 hours in 2 weeks.
Wow, that's very impressive. And you're able to keep up with your studies doing that?
Yep.
You're taking a normal class load?
I am not. I have 6 classes, so with the block schedule, you can take 4 each day. So I have 2 free periods. One is work experience, so that also helps me get those extra hours without a normal work permit. A normal work permit is about 25 hours a week, so that also kind of helps.
Well, that's awesome. Thank you for your contributions to, you know, our economy and your own education, and that's just really impressive.
Thank you.
So just a couple more things about the block schedule. We have the opportunity now also to take the students out into the field. So for example, here on Thursday and Friday, we're actually going to be taking students out to our Henshaw pumpkin patch, our horticulture classes, and they'll be able to work out there. And it's nice because they don't have to miss their other classes with the block schedule. In addition, with the added electives, our program went from 375 students prior to the block schedule, and now we're at 630 with the FFA program. We even hired a 4th ag teacher because of that. And so it's been a huge help for those students to have that on, like, hands-on programs. Is there anything you wanted to add?
Yes, Mr. Tennis.
Thank you, Madam President. I'll try not to make this meeting all about me. That Henshaw pumpkin thing is so cool. I've got 4 young kids, 13 and down to 3.5, and man, it is just the most fun thing to go out there and pick out pumpkins. So yeah, if anybody out there in our massive, you know, internet audience doesn't know about the pumpkin farm on Henshaw, check it out.
Yeah. Hello, Ronnie Cockrell here. I just wanted to also reiterate, we went from me teaching 5 periods of welding to now where we have 8 periods of welding that are being offered, because it had grown so much that kids weren't able to get in prior to the schedule now. And so now that we have the block schedule, our welding shop now is 8 periods solid, which is a huge you know, benefit for these kids that weren't able to get in because it just didn't allow them. The schedule before was like, oh, I tried to get in my freshman year or my sophomore year, and then I'm getting welding 1 kids as juniors and seniors, which that's kind of a lower level class. So it's been really nice to have 4 periods of welding 1, 2 periods of welding 2, and then an advanced capstone class to go on top of that. So it has been just remarkable to have that kind of growth in the welding program. And on top of that, having the 90-minute block schedule, it has really opened up so much for us as instructors to be able to lengthen the lesson a little bit to where we can get more done in 90 minutes than we can in the regular schedule on our side of things. So it has been really beneficial for us.
Yes. Who raised your hand first, Caitlin or Dr. Kaiser?
So, Ronnie, you gonna win us some more awards?
Yeah, we're.
I mean, I don't want you slacking just because, you know.
That's not gonna happen, so no. I will have to say, you know, on the Pumpkin Patch Henshaw Farm side, we did run into a little bit of an issue this year on the pumpkins. Just like everybody else, if you planted your pumpkins in the middle of June, as we did, we ran into one of the hottest weekends with the 30-mile-an-hour winds that stressed our plants out. So the pumpkin patch itself is not as good as it should have been or has been in the past. So unfortunately, the pumpkins didn't mature, but we should have some pumpkins to be able to bring to the elementary school kids, and then still do some of our you know, field days that way. But as far as a pumpkin patch itself, it's probably not going to happen just because they didn't really mature and develop because the heat and then the virus kind of stressed them out, which is unfortunate. It was the first time this year that we had that happen, but it was also the hottest June in record for Chico, so it kind of really hurt us a little bit. So that's unfortunate. But back to the block schedule, I couldn't imagine teaching it the other way. Now that I've been doing this for even the short period of time, it's just been amazing for us to have that much time with the kids, and I just feel like the rapport. You should see our classes at lunch. Just at lunch alone, we have so many kids coming back because they feel like it's a safe place. They got to know us a little bit better because they have us for a lot longer period of time, which has been awesome.
Albie?
So I know that leading up to implementing the block schedule, there was a lot of discussion and back and forth and some contention even with the costs of going to block schedule. Not financial, but just, you know, some of the drawbacks of block schedule. And I'm curious if you all feel like the general vibe is that whatever costs there may have been are far outweighed by the benefits so far. I mean, at least personal feelings, I'm seeing nods, and I'm anticipating that this is probably pretty general among most staff. Maybe a couple departments might be a little still like, I don't know, but for the most part, it seems pretty site-wide, you would say.
I would say yes to that, only because I've never taught in a block schedule before. So I came into this not knowing anything about how this would look. And so now that I have, I'm like, whoa, why weren't we doing this years ago? I mean, this is amazing. So that was kind of nice to see. But as far as the, you know, I can't speak on the financial side of it, but I know for the kids, and I know what it's going to do as far as benefiting them, and having the ability for like that study period for those kids to be able to get stuff done, you know, their homework side of it. It is opened up so much more for us in the elective side and the ag side, where we're getting kids that are just coming in droves. I mean, it's amazing.
Yeah, I think that what I'm hearing just from you all is that it really does hit on those goals of ours to allow for more personal choice by students to get involved in things that are feeding their soul and, like, you know, and their future, right? I mean, getting to work and do all your classes that you want to do, and being able to expand your skill set that much more, I think is amazing. Personally, I got to have a block schedule in my high school, and I know as a student what the benefits of that were. And as a science teacher, I always begged for block schedule for the same reasons that you explained that they're so beneficial as a teacher. So I'm glad to hear that that's what's coming out of this already so far.
Well, and just to give you an example, just my juniors and seniors alone in my Welding 1 classes have all came up and thanked me for being able to finally take this class, because they're either on an AP schedule where they're really taking advanced classes to move on, but they really wanted to learn the skill sets of welding, but they just couldn't get it in. because of how crammed their AP schedules were. So it was interesting to see how many kids each period were like, oh, thank you, Mr. Cockrell, finally I get to take your class. And I was like, whoa, I didn't realize it until, we had been put in this position.
I
It's
was
pretty
that
cool.
student. I didn't get to take my CTE classes until my last year of high school.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
So I don't know, I just really think this is a cool schedule.
Yes, Mr. Tennis?
Thank you, Mr. Cockrell, for what you do. The welding thing, I of course never had a chance to do that when I was at Chico Junior and Chico High, but I did take a woodworking class in junior high with a guy named Bart Frulin. And man, just life-changing, I mean, to shatter the barrier that exists between, some teenage kid and the world of bandsaws and table saws and jigsaws and, I mean, it goes from meaning nothing to you, because you're just some kid, to now it's in your hands and hopefully not cutting them. But it really was really life-changing. I mean, I know that every subject has the potential to completely turn somebody's life inside out, in a positive way. But like things like wood shop and welding, I mean, that you take somebody who just had no exposure to that, and now all of a sudden they're learning how to do it. I mean, they'll just look at the world in a whole different way. So thank you for what you do, and yeah, all you guys, you ag guys are just some of the greatest people out there. So thanks.
Thank you for having us.
When we brought Senator Nielsen up to visit your programs, you remember how excited he was with his background and support for these types of classes, and living right in the middle of the greatest part of agriculture in California. You're giving tools to folks who either move on to, Chico State and their farm program, or with the welding, especially moving into some incredibly well-paying, secure jobs, if that's what the student wants, because we need welders and farmers. Oh my gosh. So thank you for the students and the staff.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, guys.
Thank you again for coming. All right, for the second portion of our presentation, we're moving on to social emotional learning supports, which is...
Sorry, Jay, I don't mean to interrupt you, but the slide is still, it moved ahead, and we didn't get to touch on the district-wide summer activities, extended school year, early background recovery. And I had a couple of questions on this slide, so.
Oh, okay, perfect. The last thing that she just talked about, some of the other things that we highlighted with our academic supports. Again, we had our summer academies that we talked about at a previous board meeting, that we had over 1,000 kids attend. Extended school year and early back for our kindergartners and some of our other programs, and our credit recovery summer schools that we were able to do over the summer.
And so with the Marsh After School program, that's new this year.
Correct.
And is that modeled after what's been happening over at?
Chico Junior and Bidwell.
Awesome.
So we're running the same type of programs there. We were able to use some of our ESSER funds to provide that for Marsh.
That's great. And hopefully that'll be able to continue after
We
this.
hope so, yes, for the next couple. We have enough for the next two, and then we continue to look for grants, so we continue to do that. Marsh has recently became a Title I school, so we'll be able to qualify with them to go after that.
It should be after this year, right?
Yeah, for the BLAST grant, we'll be able to, on the next round, be able to add them into it.
Great. That's awesome to hear. Thanks for sharing that. And then what's the Pleasant Valley 0 and 7th period?
So this year, like Chico High went to a block, but what PV decided to do was a 0 and a 7th period, so kids can attend 0 period before school starts. There's academic study halls, and 7th period with the same thing. Am I correct on that, John? Yeah, so the kids are able to sign up for those and also earn credit for coming to 0 period or 7th period.
Can they do both?
I would imagine so, yes, they can. Yes.
So it in a sense, opens up not quite the same level of opportunity that the block schedule has at Chico High, but it does allow for a little bit more scheduling options for students.
Correct. There's still 56-minute periods, so it doesn't have all the same benefits of the long time with the teachers. However, they can gain some more credits. They can do some extended study hall type of activities, and some electives are also offered. So it's they're creeping their way there.
Awesome, thank you.
Thanks, John. Okay. All right, if I move on to the next slide, is our social emotional learning supports. It's under LCAP goal number 2, provide social emotional learning and supports, provide healthier student attitudes about themselves and others. Some of our highlights I'm going to bring up first are two of our 4 special ed coordinators, Damie Trowbridge and Joanna Meng. They help us oversee our secondary and elementary counseling programs and our social emotional supports.
Hello, I am Damie Trowbridge, Special Education Coordinator, and in this role I am part of the District Crisis Response Team as well. In the event of a crisis, I help organize our counseling teams to provide mental health supports to students and staff. And then I also oversee our educationally related mental health service counselors, and they provide the Tier 3 service for our students whose mental health is significantly impacting their ability to make educational progress.
Good evening. My name is Joanna Meng. As Mr. Marchant said, I'm a special education coordinator, and it's also my pleasure this year to support the elementary school counselors. We are very excited this year to have a full-time school counselor at each of our elementary school sites. And so that is something that we're really enjoying. I'd like to introduce Jenna Johnson, who is a school counselor at Little Chico Creek Elementary School, and Lori Mclaughlin, who's a school counselor at Citrus Elementary, and they're going to share more about our various social emotional supports and how we're tracking student progress within those programs.
Thank you. I'm back here scrambling, writing notes because I want to tell you all the things, but I'm going to start out with what every kid in Chico Unified should know as our breathing tool, which helps calm jitters. Because that's what we teach, is kids how to regulate their emotions. But this year, we are fortunate enough to have full-time counselors at each elementary site, along with the support of our amazing counseling assistants, whose contract days were also increased. The positive impact of those decisions has been tremendous. Many of our counselors last year served on 2 different sites. In one case, that meant one counselor was supporting over 1,100 students between 2 schools. That counselor is now very happily grounded at one site and is thrilled with the consistency that she's now able to provide. She also has been able to start a peer mentorship program in which students support each other out at recess with problem-solving skills. Another counselor created an entire wellness center, and our site is currently planning parent training opportunities to help really support our families. Knowing the research about SEL, which is that it sticks with kids for their whole lives and can be linked with positive life outcomes, even 18 years down the road, our wellness team prioritized providing classroom lessons each week. This means that every single class, TK through 5th grade, receives a weekly specialized lesson on social emotional learning using Kimochi's Toolbox or the Second Step curriculum. Every student on our campus receives social emotional support on a regular and ongoing basis, which teaches them the life skills of regulating their emotions, social skills, etc. Another significant impact of having full-time counselors and counseling assistants at each site is that we are able to truly integrate our services throughout the entire school setting. This year, I've been more involved in the decision-making level on our positive behavior intervention teams, our student-based intervention teams, as well as directly supporting students with things like check-in, check-out, which is a daily one-on-one intervention. This full-time integration is what has allowed our counseling teams to really access all of our students through really quality Tier 1 services. Recently, in our district, our teachers completed a screener which identifies at-risk students with at-risk behaviors, and we are seeing a higher number of students in need. So our counseling teams are currently putting together additional small group counseling, individual counseling, and other interventions to support those students. My fellow counselors and counseling assistants are in very high demand right now, and because we're full-time, there's always a trained professional on site to respond to challenging behaviors, whether it's a situation involving mental health struggles or challenging behavior, all of which we know will block a kid's access to learning and memory and, progressing academically. So in conclusion, our kids now know who we are, they know where we are, and they know how to find us and access our services. So I just want to thank you for that.
Good questions.
No, I didn't notice your hands were up. Who was first? Dr. Kaiser?
I saw the notification that we're going to start at Rosedale and at Emma Wilson with a special parent education support structure at night, and it appeared to be extremely interesting. So who's actually doing the work in those?
Jamie, would you like to come up? She's our homeless and foster liaison. She'll come on up.
When Jamie's name came up on the screen, I was going to give a shout out to that, but we just kept kind of rolling, so.
That would be me and the targeted case managers working with Ted Sullivan to put on a all-star parent program. It's what I talked about last month and with the flyers, and I said I would update you guys on the progress of the program. And our update is that we will be launching next week, and you guys are all invited to come in and pop in and see what it's all about. We're able to provide either breakfast or dinner, depending on whether the family is coming to a morning or an evening event, and childcare for the families so that we can remove the barriers so that they can access the parenting program. It covers 40 developmental skills for the family to learn and to incorporate within their family. And if you guys would like more information about that, I would love to share it with you over coffee.
Oh, okay.
Thank you, Jamie. I'm glad you're back. Back this meeting. Mr. Tennis, yes, I'm sorry. I was about to ask my question, but then
Oh, no.
No.
Okay.
I remembered you had your hand up first.
Let's see, you are Jenna Johnson, right? You mentioned that you're finding that the kids are more in need. Can you elaborate on that, please?
So each year we do an at-risk screener, which looks at kids' behaviors. And we changed our screener this year, so we don't get to really compare apples to apples, but it's still really quality information about kids who might be struggling with anxious feelings, or who might be, lying within the classroom, or struggling to make friends, or really withdrawn. And so looking at our screener results, we are seeing a higher number of kids than we typically have in the past coming out as needing some additional supports. And that is where, like Ms. Bangson was showing us in that tier system, that's when we look at bumping a kid up to either a small group counseling that's really designed for what that child is needing, or if the needs are high enough, we'll pull them into individual counseling.
I have got 4 kids of my own, 3 of whom are in the school system right now. And yeah, I've been in the meetings with, I've been in private schools, I guess religious, with my kids. And I've been here. And it's a complex world, education, providing a good education program, no matter where you are, it's not an easy endeavor. And when kids start having problems, behavior problems in class, then I think that's when the depth of an organization becomes apparent. Because in this school district, I can tell you that there is incredible depth with the counseling services and all the various interventions. Some of these meetings that I've been in with my kids at different times have involved, 5, 6 different people. You've got the teacher, you've got the principal, you've got the counselor, you've got, the random person that I know that's not their title, but there's those staff who they know all the kids, they're interacting with the kids constantly, they're there, they're available. there's just so much backup, and you've got a great opportunity to make a difference in these kids' lives, and I know that you're doing that, so thank you.
Thank you.
No, don't get to go away
I'll
yet.
stay.
I had wondered if you feel that some of the struggles that the families are going through because of COVID and people being out of work and people being displaced and other things, do you see that reflected in the severity of some of the issues that our little ones have?
You know, it's no secret what our county and our entire world has been through in the last couple of years. So while I don't have, data at hand, we do know that when families struggle, kids struggle. And so the more, that is why our site has really looked at providing some parent supports so that we can offer kind of the same social emotional lessons and, teach things to families so that they can really use that in their homes, so that kids have that continuity about what their feelings are and how to manage it in our social settings, right? Whether it's school or home or wherever. As well as really trying to target that classroom intervention. Like our counseling teams really decided we're gonna push into those classrooms so we can see all the kids as much as possible. Because we know that small groups, targeted things, that is great, but the more we can kind of surround our kids with the skills that they need, that will be helpful, because we know our county has struggled with so many big triggers. So again, I don't have, specific data for you, but yes, whenever a kid or a family or a whole town or a whole county has a challenging or traumatic event, that will show up in our children. So, I think that's the value of SEL.
I don't remember now who mentioned the peer counseling groups. Who is coordinating that, at what grade level? And kind of give me an idea of how peer counseling is formed.
So when I was asked to speak, I reached out to my counselors because, oddly enough, I actually don't work full-time, and I feel like I was someone who, I needed to look to my others who really had gone from part-time to full-time. I share a counseling position with one other person. So I asked everyone what they're doing, and that was happening at Shasta by one of our fabulous counselors, Miko, and I actually just learned about it. I want to know more. I told her, I really hope you'll share. It sounds like she coaches a certain group of kids, and then they go out, she said, with their clipboards and their vests, and they go out and they support their peers to solve problems. So hopefully that's something I'll be able to learn more about, and we can get going in other sites.
And that's elementary. The only peer that, I remember from my days working in the district, I know there were some at junior high level many years ago, and at the senior high level. And again, we lost the ability to work that in because of the scheduling mandates that we had. So I'm glad that, that kind of experience, it's so good for both sides.
Right.
For the person that's doing and receiving. So,
Exactly.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I will just
Diane?
I will just add in, Eileen, that we do have some peer counseling in different venues at both junior and senior high, based on what that school has established. For example, you heard from Chico High, I think it was last meeting or the one before, that they have that NAMI group, and they do some peer counseling. At Marsh Junior, they bring in additional intern counselors from Chico State, and they establish some peer counseling groups that happen. So it happens in different avenues. It isn't always directly through the counseling teams from elementary, secondary. Our psychologist actually runs it at Chico High School. So it's just different at all the different sites. And we had invited our elementary counselors this time, so I can get more information for you on that if you like, though.
Always interested in the peer counseling thing. I've just seen such significant benefit from it in my, many years with the school at different levels. And yeah, if it's something that we can utilize, it's like the parent education tool that Oakland uses, where the parents go to college. They don't call it college, but, you know, parents are able to interact with people from the school to learn skill levels and things, and it's parent to parent a lot of times. So anything that's working, I don't necessarily need it, but know that this board member supports it wholeheartedly. Thank you. Oh, Member Dalby?
Hi, I just wanted to add one more tool. My name is Lori Mclaughlin. I'm the school counselor at Citrus Elementary School. And I, of course, echo a lot of what Jenna said. She talked about the screener that the teachers do. And historically, we get a lot of information about what students might need, higher levels of services when it comes to social emotional supports. But we're really trying to expand our ability to hear directly from students as well. So we have a new tool that we're using. We started using it last year at Citrus, and now all of the elementary schools and actually the secondary schools are using it as well. It's called Kelvin, and it's a really great technology-based tool where we have created 4 climate surveys that the students get throughout the school year. We did our first climate survey. When they open their Chromebooks the day of a survey, there's a little dog, and he starts barking, and when the kids, you know, the more they ignore him, the more he starts trying to get their attention. And when they click on it, they're given a series of questions. At the elementary level, it's 8 questions that ask them about the climate and how they feel about the school. And it kind of just taps into a lot of those social emotional questions we have from their perspective. And we do it grades 2 through 5 in elementary. And we're going to be using that information to really drive, you know, to kind of balance it with what we're seeing in the data and what the teachers are telling us to adjust our curriculum. We also give the kids the opportunity on those surveys and the smaller pulses that we do throughout the year. In fact, at Citrus, tomorrow we have one that has 3 questions. We give them the opportunity to say, would you like to talk with the counselor? And if they say yes, then as quickly as possible, we go and meet with the students. And so it gives them one more opportunity to kind of let us know how they're doing, how they're feeling about school. It gives us really good feedback, and it gives them an opportunity to kind of raise their hand and say, I'd like to talk to my counselor. Every time we run a pulse, I get anywhere from 5 to 20 kids who want to talk with me for a variety of reasons, and it's great because I get a lot of kids that might not come by my office otherwise. So we're just trying to expand the ways that kids can tell us how they're feeling and ways that we can be really responsive to the needs of the kids at our school, you know, that day, that week, that month. So I just wanted to share that with you.
Right.
So I guess just my line of questioning starts with, you touched on this concept that without an intact social, emotional well-being, that academic success is very hard to reach. And we talk a lot about these 3 backpacks that we have. We have our academic, our social, emotional learning, and we have the behavioral. They're frequently discussed linearly or horizontally, but really research shows that it's actually a hierarchy, right? So you have your basic needs, which would be your social emotional needs. If those aren't being met, then your behavioral stuff is not going to be in line, and therefore you're really going to have a hard time accessing that academic piece, which is your top of that hierarchy. So that in mind, what I've always kind of wondered, and I think it's a magical thing to me as a classroom teacher to see how our counselors handle the juggle of prioritizing student needs first and foremost, even if it means that they have to miss some academic time. And so is that, at some point, that's where the multi-tier comes in, because you know the kids who are more targeted, and you know that there's just this small core group of kids who they're going to miss some lessons, but they're going to miss them anyway, whether they're there or not. And I guess my question is there any conflict so far that you've seen where where that might, your ability to reach kids when needed, as needed, is conflicting with the classroom or disruptive in pulling out or meeting with kids or anything like that?
No, I mean, I think our campuses that I'm aware of, especially my campus, I know, we work really closely together, a whole school as a team, of when's going to be the best time to pull a kid for a small group. We try to be really thoughtful of that whole child approach, like Ms. Bengtson had that excellent visual that we know that our brains, the limbic system, right? If we're calm and regulated, we can access our memory, we can access the ability to learn new things. If we're not regulated, that goes out the door. So, you know, that's why we really look at the tier 1 and getting a lot of social emotional supports just embedded into the classroom and their everyday functioning and how the teacher speaks and, you know, different tools that the teacher can prompt the kids to use. And then if we do know a student needs to be pulled out for one thing or another, we try to work with everyone so that we're thoughtful of when that happens and it's the least disruptive, and you know, we know that, or we hope that the benefit will outweigh any, you know, loss of recess or classroom time or whatever they're maybe losing. But
Great, thanks. Honestly, it was less about the question, but more about just making sure that we're all like hearing that concept that the social emotional piece is the carrier for everything else that leads to success in our classrooms. Mr. Tennis wasn't here for the beginning of the presentation where they talked about the tiers. I know that you have access to that, but the first couple of slides of this presentation like really lay out, you know, tier 1 is all the supports that are available to all students, and then tier 2 is where you have some, you know, more targeted interventions. And this is for all 3 different categories. And then the top tier is where it's intensive interventions for the smallest percentage of students who really, really need it. Thank you so much for all you are doing. And I'm just so excited that we have counselors at every single elementary, because as a middle school teacher, we see that effect, you know, of not having enough counseling staff at the elementary schools once they reach us there at the middle schools. So it makes me emotional to know that our kids are really being helped this year. So grateful for you.
I just want to plug really quickly, our counselors and our counseling assistants do fantastic work in this district. So thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to highlight one other thing. I don't know if Phil or one of you guys can click on that link that's on that slide. It says access to staff. Can they? I don't know. John?
Can you see it? It's right up there. John's going to go do it.
Yeah, sorry. Is it? This is one of the things that Marsh has right now. One of our things was that we heard from our students in our LCAP student meetings was they needed easier access to our counselors and ways to get to them without just walking into the office and signing it up on a clipboard. This is one of the things that Marsh has available. Also, on the barcode reader, on the scan reader there, if we click on it, you'll see when a kid clicks on that, what comes up. Thank you. And then okay, then again, the student can sign in with their email, but then it goes down, who would you like to see? It shows all the different support people on their staff that they can sign up to see. Cool. So it's really cool. Again, it makes it more accessible to kids. They know the faces, not always the names, so they can go right under there and click to see who they feel comfortable with seeing, and then that person will immediately see them. So that's just one of the ways that we're trying to make it more accessible to our kids. So I just want to kind of highlight that program. Yeah, go ahead, Mo.
I know that Emma Wilson has God, my brain just went blank. I want to say a social emotional dog, but that's not what we call it. But does Marsh, because I see the dogs there.
Yeah. Yeah, every site has a place where they can click on their website to get to a counselor. Marsh just wanted to make it, this is just where they made it friendlier. And then every school does the Kelvin dog.
No, I mean a real dog.
Oh,
Emma Wilson has a real therapy dog.
No, Marsh does not.
Marsh doesn't? Okay.
Yes. I believe it's Citrus has the dog.
Yeah.
And Emma Wilson also has one.
Yeah.
I believe
Yeah.
those are only two.
I mean, they're very, they play very key parts.
Yes.
Yeah, we met Citrus's dog when she arrived. Okay, yeah, he came to a meeting.
Also, there's one other thing on there, it's called EduClimber. What EduClimber does for us, it tracks kids for us. So it will literally, if a student is falling in their grades, or if they're starting having more discipline, or they're starting to miss school, EduClimber tracks those kids for us. Not only does it say their name, it brings up their picture to show this student might need support. So that's what the EduClimber is. That's what I don't know if I'm hitting that correctly, but Tim's our expert on that. But what that does, it tracks our students for us. And the student could fall off of EduClimber if things improve, but it continues to do that for them. That's what EduClimber is on that site. Any more questions on that slide? Because I know I've been bad before. Okay, behavioral supports. Okay, that's our LCAP 3, provide behavioral instruction and supports as a proactive approach to creating a safe, positive climate and school culture. Things that we do, we have district-wide things we do. We have additional target case manager time on our school sites, and we also have our SBIT teams, our school-based intervention teams on our site, which meet of teachers, psychologists, counselors, administration, that a teacher can turn in a student's name, and then they can, through the team, see what kind of supports they need. It could be like any one of the backpacks, could be an academic support, behavior support, or a SEL support. So they will talk about that student in those SBIT teams and see what their next steps will be for that student. And then they can constantly, through EduClimber and these meetings, decide if it's what's working, what's not working, and what they continue need to do for that student. At this time, I'm going to bring up Jessica Capon. She is our PBIS, our Positive Behavior Intervention Support Lead for our district. She's also one of the assistant principals at Chico Jr. And it looks like she has a student with her.
I do. All right. Okay. All right. Well, hello. Thank you so much for letting me present on a topic I am absolutely passionate about. Many of you are familiar with PBIS, which stands for Positive Behavior Interventions and Supports, but I thought I would just give a little overview if you need a little refresher, just a smidgen. Basically, it can be broken down into 4 basic parts. Explicitly teaching our behavior. So just like we would teach math, like we don't expect our students to know how to solve an algebraic expression, but we sometimes think that kids should come to us and know exactly how to behave in school. Well, the research shows that that's not true. We need to teach kids how to behave in school. And if we teach them explicitly, and then we reward kids for when they do the behaviors that we want to see, and then we have consequences and also correcting and reteaching students when they might have trouble with those behaviors. And then we look at the data. So we collect this data, and Jay actually mentioned EduClimber. So that is one of our places where we're going to collect data and be able to kind of look at it and be able to determine where precisely our problems at our school lie, so that we can then go forward and say, okay, here's our problem places. How are we going to fix those with our behavior? So we actually are reacting to our data. So I wanted to let you guys know that PBIS is currently implemented in all of our schools, which is amazing. The high schools are actually just rolling out this is their first year. And so a lot of people think PBIS can't work in a high school. Those kids they already know what to do. They already know how to behave, and they're on their way. No, it really does work in a high school. And Chico High and PB are showing us that it does. And Fairview has actually been using it for a little bit of time, longer than those schools. So that is a really exciting thing. And then our other sites, our elementaries have a really, really vested. They have tiers 1, tier 2, tier 3s, and they're functioning at incredibly high rates. Our secondary, our junior highs, we're doing a really good job and consistently implementing all the 3 tiers as well. So our goal this year, like the previous presenters talked about, is to really infuse SEL lessons into our tier 1 practices. So while elementary schools do this quite naturally and are able to push in because they have a little bit more time with the students, secondary sites have a more difficult time being able to carve out in a 50-minute block
maybe a little bit longer at Chico High. But in that 50 minutes, where do we go in to teach these skills that every kid needs? But we at least at Chico High, at Chico Junior, we created a 5-minute first period where we're able to dedicate that time and teach these strategies, SEL strategies, to all of our students, such as breathing and doing different strategies that we've come up with. So the other thing that I wanted to tell you is that we have teams. All of the schools have teams, and we look at the data, and we meet regularly, at least once a month, and determine where we're gonna put our efforts. And on our teams are students. And so I would like to introduce Miss Abigail Perrin, and she is one of our student reps on our team.
My name is Abigail Perrin, and I'm a 6th grader at Chico Junior. So during my first week of school, each teacher taught us lessons about how the students behave and how to do things at school, like line up for lunch or where to play and not to play. So they either had a slideshow or a video to help us learn the rules. And last week, I went to the PBIS meeting. At the meeting, we talked about the school's problems, and we were giving data of the school's problems. They asked me about the problems and my perspective of them, and then I gave them some ideas on how to help.
All right. So I'm going to kind of model how we would reward our students, but this is a Cougar Cash, and I want to say, hey, Abby, I just want to give this to you, this Cougar Cash, because you are such a respectful Cougar. You were on time to the meeting, and you represented us really well. Thank you.
I have a question.
Yeah.
I know that we're making an effort to push in and fully integrate our special education students. Is there a special plan to make sure that you're involving them in the PBIS programs too? What's the exchange?
So all of our students, every single student receives Tier 1 PBIS services. Doesn't matter if they have an IEP or not. And then as we go up the tiers, we would consider a student who has an IEP to already be at probably the Tier 3 level with that IEP. However, if a student came to having just, it's not quite working and maybe the behavior plan isn't addressing it, we as a team, they could call us in and have a different perspective on it. So perhaps it's a little bit outside of that IEP realm. We could come in and just say, hey, here's some ideas for you. But yeah, every single student is included. Yeah, including our severely handicapped students. Yeah.
Member Member Dahlblin.
That's me. All of it's me. So you alluded to something that's a little bit of a hot topic for me personally, in a good way. Don't like. This is going in a good direction. It's the fact that our secondary schedules really don't allow for these programs, and really going back to that social emotional learning leading to behavioral, positive behavioral effects and or not, and then the academic success. It's unfortunate that we don't have it better built into our system, and it's why it's a hot topic for me is because I really thought that we were on the right track at Marsh when I was a teacher there, and we transitioned from just our tutorial program or silent reading program, which was 25 minutes out of the day. It kind of changed what point of the day it was every year depending on how things worked out, to an advisory period. We think we called it advisement because of contract things, but what it really was intended to be was that place. And the last year we had it, before COVID, or I guess the year COVID started, it was 25 minutes at the beginning of the day, which allowed for some of those students who just couldn't get to school because they had anxiety, so it kind of gave a little bit of flexibility even for late students, so they weren't missing academic time, which was just one small piece of it. And for the teachers who really embraced it, it was that time to do those PBIS teachings. I used that time to talk about Suicide Awareness Month and to talk about goal setting with SMART goals. You know, almost like a homeroom, but not a homeroom because it's not just homework. And to check in with students and to really be like that person that can like be an extra layer of support, like a counselor, but in the classroom and build those relationships. And you know, I'm just one person on this board, but that is a dream of mine, is that we can go back to having some type of, you know, even if it's just 20 minutes, 4 days a week on days that there isn't a PLC, that, you know, a little bit more than 5 minutes to build those relationships with a particular group of students. I had the same students in that room every single Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. I got to build those relationships with those kids. I got to pull them out of other places to touch base with them, because I see in English you have 15 missing assignments. Let's come up with a plan, you know, and just being that on-site adult support was a huge piece for me. So that's my plug. That's my dream, and just if anybody else out there has the same dream, know you have my support.
Yeah, and I know it's not a question, but it's a really good comment, and that we have things outside of academics that need to be addressed through explicit teaching, and we need time to be able to do that to all of our students, not just specific, you know, tier 2 interventions and tier 3 interventions. So, and I would like to say, and I didn't mention this before, the goal of going into all of the classrooms at a tier 1 level is to give every student the skills to be able to help themselves regulate, at least in this SEL piece, to know how to do this on their own so that they don't have to leave the classroom. At least 80% of them, if you give them a few strategies, will be able to use those strategies and not have to access that scan and go see the counselor, or be frequent flyers at the nurse and all those other places we know kids like to escape to. So that's kind of the goal. And it does take more time. And so I think being creative in having those discussions is really important. I do agree.
Thanks. Thank you.
Thank you.
One of the other things that I'd like to point out on there, it says LCAP highlight. I'm going to have them click on that for me. What we're trying to do, or Miss Erica Smith, not me, is our communications person. We are trying to highlight different things that our LCAP is paying for and the people that are actually paying for it. And this is one of our first LCAP highlight people that we did. It was Nancy Medina. She's a target case manager in our district. She's wonderful, by the way. So we are putting these out every month, and we have another one getting ready to come out. And so we will continue to highlight the different things that our LCAP is paying for and people that it pays for, to try to improve one of our ways to improve our communication about our LCAP. And again, other things that we will be starting to do coming probably right after winter break is we'll start doing town hall meetings about our LCAP. So we'll be inviting people onto their campuses, which we will zoom into to give more people the opportunity to understand what we did with our LCAP dollars this year and what we want to do to move forward for next year.
Jay, where do people see this?
It's on our website, on our district website.
I also saw it come out on Facebook. Yeah, so I shared it. I shared it on Facebook and got lots of good comments. About about Nancy. Mm-hmm.
So we're trying to, Erica does a good job. She pushes that on all our social media and our websites. We just, on those, for people to see.
Yeah, I think mine came through Facebook too. I remember seeing it and thinking, wow, this was great.
I guess my concern is about the areas in our county which we know don't have access to internet. And so if everything is internet accessible, then there are parents who aren't going to see this, who might really need to see it.
Right, and I understand, and I'm just going to tell you, though, with our hotspots and our free internet right now, there's probably not a student, at least we have not been told that we have any students right now that do not have access to internet between all of the free Comcast that we're able to give to certain families that qualify, and if they don't, we can't get that for them. We give them a free hotspot for their families, so they should not have an internet issue at their home.
Caitlin?
And just to maybe clarify, or Jay can maybe clarify more on this, these LCAP highlights each month is really to demonstrate how the district's strategic plan is having a positive impact on our students. And this is really like the early stages of our LCAP outreach for development in for the next school year as well.
Yeah, again, it's more of awareness again on what we're doing, again, with our LCAP plan and showing what people are involved in the LCAP. It's just not numbers when we're saying that we're spending 1.2, I'm just making that number without the numbers in front of me, for target case managers. We want to highlight, okay, here's one right here for us. I know our next one is one of our computer technicians on one of our elementary sites that'll be highlighted. Again, that's through our LCAP dollars, and so we'll be highlighting that person too and things about her. So that'll be coming out. Her name's Kathy Frost, and that'll be coming out real soon also.
Spoiler alert.
Yep, I know. I just want to be able to demonstrate once in a while. I do pay attention in my meetings. Okay, so we can go back to our presentation. So again, some of the other things that we just want to highlight, again, we did up our counseling assistants at our elementaries from 160 to 180 days. We increased our campus supervision this year on our campus, all of our campuses. And again, we were able to increase our bilingual aid time. So we just wanted to be able to say that those are some of our highlights. Again, what Kaylin was saying, if we don't take care of the whole child, they're not going to be able to do the academics. And so again, we just wanted to make sure that we're highlighting all three backpacks and not just our academic interventions tonight. And again, I would like to thank everybody that made it here tonight for me, because I know that you guys hear me talk a lot on these presentations, but I wanted to bring the actual people in that are doing the work at the school site. So I appreciate every one of them that came here tonight.
Yes, thank you.
And if you don't have any more questions, that's the end of our presentation.
Ford? Okay, we do
I just want to salute
Yeah.
both the presentation, the students who are participating, and all of you out there who are doing critical work. Thank you.
Yes, absolutely, thank you.
I'm really excited to see where we're at this time next year.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
And having this for a full year play out, I'm hopeful also. The rain that came today also made me hopeful, but that was
Yeah.
a great analogy for our kiddos as well. So thank you.
And Keely, and I will be able to share, I didn't bring it with me tonight because Tim gave me that information today. Our counseling services, so right now we track how many times our counselors see students, stuff like that. It's just about doubled just on every one of our sites, our students seeing counselors, our counseling take. So I'll be able to send those slides to you so you can see those numbers too.
Yeah, and that's to meet a need, but also to fill a need that was already there.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the point.
The capacity
We're
is
filling a
greater
need
so
that's
that-
been there for so long that we weren't able to meet. We made little steps in the past, but this opportunity, it is wonderful. Now, I'm going to put my wet blanket on that as a board member. It's our responsibility now to make sure that we manage the fiscal part of what we're doing so that when the one-time money train leaves, we have a plan to make sure that we can continue this work, because this is foundational. This is the kind of thing we can't let go away. And so that's my job as a board member that I take very seriously. Dr. Kaiser?
Should we go back now that
Yes.
fourth person has joined us and look at on the consent calendar 3.1?
Yes,
Now that you've mentioned compensation.
yes.
I'm going to go ahead and let the staff that were here for this presentation go. Thank you so much for being here. Excellent
Yes.
job. We appreciate you.
Mr. Tennis, while we were waiting for you, we took care of the consent calendar with the exception of one item that was pulled because Member Dalby can't vote on it because it pertains to her. So we waited for you to come back so we could consider that item. And if you go back to number 3.1, consider approval of resolution number 1552-21, resolution on board compensation for missed meeting. That's what we're considering now. If you or Dr. Kaiser have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them or put them. If not, I'm ready for a motion.
I make a motion to pass that resolution 1552-21.
Second.
Thank you. I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? I don't see any. Then, okay. Ms. Dalby, you can cast your abstaining vote now.
Dalby, abstain.
Tennis, aye.
Robinson, aye. Passes. 3 yes, 1 abstain. Thank you, members. Okay, we're on to our next item, which is Human Resources. Mr. Hanlon and Michelle Bunch.
Okay, thank you. So we've had a number of executive directives come down from the governor's office, and one of them has been by October 15th, we have to have determined which staff of ours are vaccinated and not vaccinated, and the ones that are not vaccinated, we have to have a testing system set up. So a few meetings ago, you were introduced to Michelle Bunch, who has worked incredibly hard to get this set up, and she's going to discuss, kind of get you up to date on where we're at and where we will be on October 15th, and then taking a look forward where we're going to be down the road. So I'm going to turn it over to Michelle.
Good evening. I'm Michelle Bunch, and I'm the COVID lead for Chico Unified School District, and I'm here to give you an update on our employee COVID-19 testing program. And as Jim said, as of October 15th, we have a mandate to test unvaccinated employees and also unverified employees. So anybody that cannot provide verification of vaccination, we have to start testing them weekly, starting October 15th. The California Department of Public Health assigned Chico Unified to Mobile Med to provide trained staff to administer and monitor site testing. So we will have 9 health aides that will work on 3 teams, and they will work the schedule that we put together with Mobile Med to test our employees. We will utilize the Binax Now COVID-19 antigen test provided free of charge by the California Department of Public Health. And anybody that tests positive on a rapid antigen test will then be administered a PCR test, which will be a send-out test for confirmation. We set up a weekly testing schedule for all CUSD campuses, including the district office and the courtyard, so that we can get our employees that are in maintenance and operations, transportation, and different departments out there. We'll begin testing October 11th, and this is during the week before the mandate actually begins, and we wanted to give it a test run just to make sure we work out any issues we have with our testing schedule. And I believe all of you received my staff announcement with the attachments and the testing schedule that we have set up. Basically, there's 3 testing times for every high school, 2 for every junior high, and every elementary site has 1 testing window.
Dr. Kaiser, you had a question?
It's noted to be a rapid test, and rapid tests have been almost impossible to get in Chico. So how fast is a rapid test, i.e., will the results be known?
Yes, so the Binax Now rapid test that we're utilizing and these health professionals will be conducting for us take around 15 to 30 minutes max. So basically the testing from start to finish when an employee comes into the line, if they've pre-registered, it's 4 to 5 minutes. It's a self-swab, so every employee will be handed a sterile swab. They will swab themselves under the direction of these health professionals, and then hand the swab to the person to do the testing, and they will leave the testing center. The test will be run, and then Primary Health has a database where all the results will be posted and the employee notified. So if after 15 to 30 minutes there's a positive, we can then call that employee back to do the PCR for confirmation.
Can you describe the test Is this a kind of a basic swab in the nose?
Yes.
Is this the nasal cavity cranium?
I like to
kiss,
call it
or-
the brain tickler. So this is not that test. So this is a very shallow swab. It's done in the lower 1 inch of the nasal cavity, and the employee does it themselves. And it's actually certified to be used down to 4 years, 9 months old. So when we start student testing, it is available to TK students that are 4 years, 9 months. And they can successfully do it themselves. I also posted a video of some students that primary health provided so employees could see how a student administers it to themselves. Because a lot of people are nervous. They think of that deep sinus test, and that is not what we're doing.
And this is, I think I know the answer to this question, but staff is basically currently not required to get the vaccine. right?
Correct.
If they agree to this twice a week?
No, they test once a week, so they have to test one time in a 5-day period and stay compliant to weekly testing if they're unvaccinated. We also opened up our testing to all vaccinated employees as well, because it's just a good practice for periodic testing and breakthrough cases. And so we've invited all employees to this program. So while there is a mandate for unvaccinated, anyone can take advantage of the testing on site. Yes.
Just to reinforce that, a member of my family who had been fully vaccinated found out the day after she gave birth that she was asymptomatic COVID. So those breakthroughs are sneaky.
Yes, they are. So we're encouraging all staff to test intermittently, and it's just a good practice for the health of our district.
This may be off topic, and maybe I should wait for the next slide, because it does relate to students. So
Okay.
I'll
Sure.
wait.
Are there any other questions about the employee testing? And then I can address where we're headed next. Caitlin?
Yeah, I guess my only concern is just the potential for false negatives with the self-rapid test. I think that's the only like real crack that things could fall through, right? I mean, if there's a positive, then they have to do a follow-up test. But if it's a negative, I just know that there's a pretty high percentage, higher than what would be ideal percentage of false negatives, particularly if the swab is too shallow, since the farther back in your nasal cavity you go, the higher the viral load is if you do happen to be in your early stages of COVID infection. So I guess it's less of a question or maybe a question of awareness or any kind of like quality control question. Has that been considered, or how has that been? I'm sure it has been considered.
So Mr. Hanlon and I were actually really thrilled to be assigned Mobile Med because they come with trained personnel. We have the option to train our own people if this third party does not work out. But ideally, you want trained personnel. They're monitoring the swabbing to make sure it's done for the appropriate amount of time, and that reduces the number of false negatives. So they are trained and people are monitored.
Thank you.
And if it's not done properly, you get basically a neutral result, and then you have to do the PCR testing. So it has to show negative or positive, but it also has an undetermined where you can't tell, and then they'll do the PCR test to double check.
So there is some kind of quality control actually
yes.
that is built into the test too.
And they have PCR tests with them. So anybody that requires that PCR test can immediately be administered that on a callback.
Great, thank you.
One other thing, just real quick, because Kathy, you said that those tests are really difficult to get. The state has provided them free to us. We have almost 2,500 of them, so we have enough for a couple months to do what we need in our district. And then we will continue to order them until we don't need them any longer. So at this point, they have arrived on time. They're here in our offices, and actually they'll be distributed to school sites on Friday.
I think that's tremendous. I had a family member who had to go to San Francisco for a special medical exam, and they wouldn't let the person in until they had a rapid test. and they could not get it in Chico. So literally a day trip to San Francisco for nothing to then go back and have it done there. So it's an incredible resource that you don't realize how critical it is until somebody in your family needs it.
Well, I just want to say, if you've ever worked with the Department of Education or the Department of Public Health, it is layers and layers of bureaucracy, and Michelle has been on the phone for hours and hours and hours getting this set up. So it has not come easy, but she has bulldogged this, I can
Yeah.
tell you.
We got it done, and we're ready to launch, and it won't be perfect, but we will start next week and we'll work out the bugs. And so basically our next steps are to solidify our staff testing. So we want to make sure it's going well, everyone has access, the employees from Mobile Med are arriving and things are staffed well, and we're able to retrieve the results. Once we can ensure all of those things are happening, we plan to bring on our Chico Unified students on modified quarantine. So that is our next priority. We want students in school and not having to select home quarantine because they don't have a way to test. Because currently modified quarantine requires students to test twice a week. So that's why we created these long windows for access for students. And, we want them at school also. In any way we can do that, we want to provide help in accomplishing that.
That is a tremendous asset for families to be able to know if their kid really has it. So that's incredible. Thank you.
Any other questions about next steps?
So I do.
Sure.
Your email that you sent out to staff was great.
Thank you.
Thank you for just paying attention to all the little details, and I guess that's your job, but you, to me, appear to be doing a good job at it, so. So teachers have this option of not getting the vaccine. And you'll do it by testing. Will students, we know that Governor Newsom has made announcements to the effect that, he's going to require all kids to be vaccinated. Apparently, at least that was my interpretation of his recent comments. Do you see this similar option being available for kids whose parents don't want them to be vaccinated?
Jim actually had some information on that, didn't you, Jim, that you looked into today?
Yeah, it's kind of murky, but the language that has been shared is there's some opt-outs for students. They have a medical opt-out, a religious opt-out, and they also have a personal preference opt-out. So it's appearing that as it stands right now, it may not be as tight for students as we originally thought. So parents will have some choices. They may have the same choices they have right now, but we'll see how, when the fine print comes out, we'll see how that all pans out. It doesn't look as promising for staff. Right now, when students, when the older students are required to be vaccinated, unless they opt out, our staff will be as well, and so doesn't appear that they have the same list of opt-outs other than just medical. So we'll have to see how that plays out. Could be some court challenges on that, but nothing can really happen until the vaccination is approved for younger people. Right now, it's approved for 16 and older, but it is anticipated that it'll go down all the way down to age 5, so we'll just have to see how it all plays out. So for now, we are doing this system and until we know different.
Something I want to throw out, just because we're on the topic. The thing that's kind of most drawing in my attention right now when we're talking about vaccine mandates that has me concerned is I've been looking into this myocarditis, which is some sort of heart condition associated with men predominantly, I understand. And as you get lower on the age scale, the frequency of this thing, I'm no doctor, I'm just kind of doing my best to study up on it. The lower you go age-wise, the bigger a concern this thing becomes with young boys. That's got my attention, and I'm looking seriously at that. So I might be complaining about it to you all at some point in time. But anyway, it can be on your radar screen too. Myocarditis.
Yeah.
actually heard a presentation on that today from the California Department of Public Health, and they certainly are aware, and I can share that information with you. The doctor speaking was very articulate about that particular issue.
Thank you for letting me know about that.
So we'll keep you posted as things move on, and we'll let you know how things go after October 15th.
Thank you.
Yeah, I just want to
you,
salute
Michelle.
you, Michelle.
Thank you,
for
Michelle.
setting it up.
Same, yeah, same, Michelle. I was impressed by your email as well, and I just had like this the littlest comment that I've seen a fear perpetuated that the more you test, the more positive, the more cases there will be. But really, the more we test, the better we know exactly what's happening. The more data you have, the more sure you are about your assumptions of the, the state of things. So I'm really grateful that we'll be able to keep track on the wellness of our staff and students a little bit better with this testing internally. Thank you so much for all your work and
thank you.
all the time you've spent on the phone. I don't envy you, but I'm super grateful for you.
Well, thank you.
Do we have any requests for public comment?
We did not receive any requests for public comment for this agenda.
Thank you. Okay, this is an informational only item, board, so we do not have an action required. And we'll move on to our next item, which is 4.2.2, approval of Chico Unified Teachers Association tentative agreement.
So basically, this is the culmination of our conversations we've had before regarding the agreement with CUTA. We have been in negotiations with CUTA through last year, and we decided to postpone the financial part of it until this year, until we could determine what our enrollment is. So obviously, we've reached the tentative agreement, and that has been sent on to you to review. And today, voting ended with CUT members, and it was overwhelmingly approved. So the next step is essentially board approval and before we can implement. So I bring to you for the vote for the implementation of our tentative agreement with CUTA. Any questions?
Let me move forward here. Dr. Kaiser?
This has been a long, drawn-out, but I think very thorough process. And so I would like to move the passage of the tentative agreement with the Teachers Association.
Dr. Kaiser, thank you, but we do have to ask if there's been any public comment on this issue.
Oh, we have public.
Yep,
Okay.
Justin.
Thank you.
There were no public.
Nobody
requests
cares.
For any of the items on this.
Did you have an additional question, Mr. Tennis?
Yes, I do. Attachment D lists stipends, including sports and non-sports and drama, et cetera. Am I looking at the right agenda item here?
Yes.
Yes, you are.
Yes, okay. It was drilling into the details of tonight's meeting this morning, and we don't see anything for after-school band. I happen to know that there is a band activities going on after hours, like a jazz band type of thing. Is that an item that needs any funding, and why is it not in here? And are the people who are conducting it, i.e. Mr. Phil, happy?
So I'm going to speak from experience when I was principal at Chico High School, and that was considered a class period that they were included in their schedule. Often, many of the jazz members were already in the main band, and so they wanted to do something specialized such as jazz. So those are often done in the evenings or right after school. So those are included in the schedule that a teacher is paid for anyway. So it's not included as far as an extra stipend for that. I'm assuming that that's the way it works even now. Mr. Shepard is shaking his head, yes.
So he's not volunteering his time when he's there?
No, they may only teach 4 periods during the day and then have jazz band after school's out. So, and sometimes that is in the evenings, especially when they're preparing for concerts.
Yeah, all right, thank you for clarifying that.
Uh-huh.
I'm happy to second Dr. Kaiser's
Yes, I'll
motion.
now accept Dr. Kaiser's motion.
Yeah, and I was just going to follow the comment because I actually think it ties in extremely well to our multi-tier social support. Many times, those teachers who are coaching or working with special groups, choir, music, drama, that is where they have the closest possible relationship with the student, and it's a really critical person that they'll talk to first. So I'm very much in favor that we recognize this is not just extra time, but it's a really high-quality personal contact time, and really is significant. And over 50% of our high school kids are involved in something like this, so it's really important.
Member Dalby?
I have a couple questions. On the attachment D, for junior high stipends, department chair is listed here. Is that something that's still not happening? It's in here, but it doesn't happen.
It is not happening right now. We did not take it out because someday it may, and then you have to renegotiate all those things. So, but we do not have department chairs for junior highs.
And
We
is
do
the
for
reason
high school.
that there aren't department chairs at junior high is because it just hasn't been asked for?
They went away, and the work that was associated with them went away during budget cuts, 10, 12 years ago or more, and they just, have not come back.
Okay. I just never understood why there weren't chairs when there were teachers who were doing the work of department chairs at the junior high level. So it sounds like there's not really any good reason. Okay. And then the other question is about teacher in charge. How are the teacher in charge selected? Or how is, I guess, for a singular campus?
Yeah, you want to talk about?
Usually it's chosen by the site administrator, somebody that's taken a leadership role on the campus. Some that also could be one of our teachers that is in the program at Chico State to become an administrator, so we want to give them the opportunity to get some experience in that program. But yes, it's selected by the site administrator.
I'd like to see that explored a little bit better, just because it's not necessarily consistent, and sometimes it's a little bit, what's the word for nepotism? Almost like nepotism, where it's either a favorite, or they just, it's a friendly gift to the favorite teacher. I just happen to know, for example, that it's happened on a campus that it was a first year or a second year teacher on that campus, and it wasn't offered or solicited to any experienced teacher on the campus who had been there for at least a few more years. And so that the fact that position is a straight stipend that's for the year, right? This 2028.
Yeah, they get 2 semester.
So they get appointed the teacher in charge, and there are so many days that they have to be in charge. And don't get me wrong, it is a hard freaking job. I've known of our teacher in charge being spit on, bit, punched in any given day that they're in charge. For some reason, those kinds of things just happen on those days. Not to take anything away from that, but just to know that there's a more diplomatic process to select who will be the teacher in charge. It's an important position, and to just make it be whatever's the will of the administrator isn't always the best option, in my opinion.
I can only just talk about myself. When I was administrator at Marsh, I wanted to make sure that if I was off campus and I had a teacher in charge on campus, it's somebody that I know that I could trust, that when I'm leaving my school, that they were going to do what they need to do or do the right thing. Most of that time was to give me a phone call, but I wanted to make sure that I chose somebody that I know the steps of when it now, again, I don't know the person that you're talking about right now, but most of the time I chose somebody that I knew that was going to be in a leadership role or wanted to be in a leadership role or talked to me about being in a leadership role, and I wanted to make sure that I trusted that person on my campus when I was off campus.
Dr. Geiser?
Yeah, just clarification. So if I understood the exchange that happened about department chair at the junior high, there's an amount identified, but nobody has that title. Was that the clear? Oh.
It's not offered, even when it's requested.
Any further discussion, board? Are we ready for a vote? We don't have any requests for public comment. Do we have a motion?
Well, I made the motion. I can repeat it. I'm moving the approval of the CUTA, a tentative agreement.
Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you. No further discussion. I'll call for the vote. Member Dalby? Voting on the
Yeah,
tentative
I was
agreement.
just thinking we could all, didn't we all
Maybe
vote the
not,
same
because
last
didn't you
time?
abstain on the last one?
Yeah, you did.
That's right. We have not voted very much tonight. I apologize. Dalby, aye.
Kaiser, aye.
Tennis, aye.
Robinson, aye. Thank you. And thank you to CUTA, and glad you're here, Kevin. Thank you.
So just a note, I'll be bringing the CSEA agreement forward at the October 20th. They are in the process of working through their 610 process, and also then they'll vote before the October 20th meeting.
Do we know if the 610 approval has gotten any shorter, or are we looking at?
It appears not, but that's why we didn't bring it forward tonight. So,
Yeah.
but we can bring it to you on the 20th, and still be in time for payroll at the end of the month. This gives our payroll department a head start on half of our employees. So this is a great start for them.
Yeah.
They're shorthanded now, so they appreciate that.
A meeting that I attended, where are we, Wednesday, Monday, indicates that there have been staff cutbacks at CSEA field offices and headquarters. So nudge.
Yeah.
Because I think we're ahead of schedule with tentative agreement approvals, so we should be getting that 610 on time.
Yes, we've been assured that it will happen. So
Okay.
we've been in contact with Sacramento.
Thank you. Okay, let me move on to business services. Number 3, discussion on AB 2756, public disclosure documents for compensation agreement with the Chico Unified School District. That's the wrong one.
Nope, that's right.
That is
That's
the
right.
right one. Oh, that's the, yeah, got it. That's the other thing we have to do when we reach an agreement. Thank you.
So I'm going to carry this one. Just an explanation, anytime we reach an agreement with an employee unit, we have to disclose that to the County Office of Education under AB 2756. And essentially, it's a submission to show that we can afford to do what we're doing, and we're going to remain in positive, what do they call it? Certification, positive certification in so doing. So Jacqueline, who couldn't be here tonight, prepared all this and is ready to submit it upon board approval. So the numbers are essentially what we've discussed before with the incoming dollars that we get from the state. So we're ready to do that with approval by the board.
Mr. Hanlon, you just confused me, which isn't hard these days. You said that, yes, we have run the numbers, but aren't we supposed to get something back after it's sent to certification by the county? And that can't happen until Jacqueline gets back, or is that what you're saying?
No. Anytime we reach an agreement with a,
Yes.
we have to submit this to show that we can
Right.
afford it, essentially. And so this is a follow-up to the vote that you just took to approve the agreement, and then we have to certify that with the county to show that we have the funds
Okay.
to support that.
I
Yeah.
understand.
And it's a requirement that we have to do every year anytime we reach an agreement.
Yes, thank you. Okay, that's, are there any public comments?
There were no requests for public comment?
Okay, any other technicals, Dr. Kaiser?
I just wanted to, it's a discussion action, to point out that we have verification internally that we can afford this, and that's what voting on this will then send to the county.
Yes.
So
Thank you.
I move AB 2756.
Thank you. I'll second it. board president doesn't get to second much, but I'm going to second this one. Okay, do we have any further board discussion? Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. 4 with board member Landau absent. Okay. Charter Schools Measure K project requests. There's Julie. Julie, did you get the message about what I relayed about the black strip out in front of campus?
No, ma'am.
When I arrived, it had been raining. I saw it. I tested my crutch tips on it. It is slippery as ice. So I wanted you to know that, because had it been any wider, I would not have been able to enter without having a carpet or something thrown over that very slick surface on that black cement.
Thank you for letting me know. I'm on it.
Okay, you're up with the Measure K project requests.
Thank you. On September 27th, the Measure K Charter Facility Committee met, and they evaluated a recommendation and made a recommendation to our department from Forest Ranch Charter School. They would like to be allocated $7,451 for a new phone system for their school. Any questions?
Any questions? Okay, do we have any public comment? We have no public comment. Do I have?
I'd like to.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Madam, sorry. This is a staff recommendation. You're recommending that we support this?
Yes, it's newer technology for them, which they can utilize the VoIP system, voice over internet protocol, and it will help with their school safety to have a reliable phone system on their campus.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm now ready for a motion.
I move the, excuse me, I move the passing of the Measure K project for Forest Ranch.
I'll
Is there-
second.
Is there a second?
Yes, I'll second.
Okay, moved by Dr. Kaiser, seconded by Member Dalby. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. The vote is 4 yes, 1 absent. Thank you. Julie, next.
Thank you. This next item is resolution number 1555-21, and an accurate description of this is the approval of a change order for Slater and Son contract on the CTE project at Pleasant Valley High School to add the fire alarm campus-wide retrofit and upgrade to the project. The reason we're bringing it forward as a resolution is because the value exceeds 10% of their contract. So it must come through you as a resolution. Can I answer any questions?
Nope.
I
Dr.
just-
Kaiser?
Yeah, I'll make a comment. I just was struck on these about the number of improvements that we are discovering need to be made as we are doing these improvement areas or expansion areas, including the phone aspect, that really relate to critical safety aspects. So I just think it seems like that we're lucky these discoveries happened when they did and not after the fact, when somebody discovers their fire alarm system doesn't work because a building burned down, for example. So I just think it's really critical, and to me, it made total sense not to do a public bidding.
I have a question, and maybe I just don't understand as well. But so when we put a project out to bid, and we approve the lowest bidder because that's what's required by law, and then they come back and say, actually, we need to increase this by $800,000. And if they had included that in their original bid, they wouldn't have been the lowest bidder. I'm kind of perplexed about how this shakes out.
Well, that's a really good question, and that's why this law is a law, that the 10% contract value law. This work was not included in the project for bidding initially.
So we didn't include it in our ask.
Correct.
Gotcha.
There is fire alarm included on the buildings that Slater is working on for CTE projects. This includes the other existing buildings on the campus. So when we are completed with all of the CTE projects, the NPR, the culinary arts, medical, child development, the whole campus will be brought up to current code. Some of the key features are, we're using our CTE dollars to leverage, so we have the ability to do this now, which is really wonderful. The equipment that's in some of those older buildings that haven't been updated is old, and finding parts when they need to be changed out is getting more and more difficult. So this is really a good opportunity. It will bring the whole school up to current code, but one of the biggest advantages is that it provides additional warning for individuals with visual and hearing impairment, which is really a great deal. And that is code now, but a lot of our campuses don't have that voice system where when a staff member or a child hears the alert over the speaker, it's speaking to them saying, this is a fire. You need to evacuate.
Mm-hmm.
And instead of just a ringing bell and they have to try to understand what that means, there's actually a voice speaking to everyone on campus over the speaker system, telling them exactly what's going on and what they need to do.
Yeah.
So it's really a great advantage.
I definitely was not arguing against that at all. I have no problem with upgrading our system to be as inclusive and, reach all people with all types of needs as possible. I just am always a little concerned about the bid process.
Sure.
And so there's a law, you're telling me, and this is, I know, a little bit of an aside, but it's helping me understand for future reference. Mm-hmm. There's a law that, if the winning contract was bid at $500,000 and they came back and said, oh, well, it turns out there's also this that we need to add. Or we miscalculated this cost and it actually is going to be this much more. They couldn't surpass $50,000.
Right. The law is actually put in place to protect contractors from the district.
Interesting.
Requiring them to do more work without giving them the ability to be competitive and put the markup that they want to put on it. But what you're saying is true, that we cannot authorize a change order that exceeds that 10% of their original bid price. In this case, that scope of work was not ever bid. So we are choosing to add it, and we have got a competitive bid from the electrician working for Slater.
Sure, and it is, I'm assuming, this feels weird to ask this, but it is legal to do that even with our CTE funds, even though those facilities aren't CTE facilities because it's under this contract?
Correct. Okay. The whole project is funded with a combination of CTE funds and Measure K, Measure E developer fees. Okay. So it is legal, yes.
Okay. I hope that my questions aren't annoying and that it
Not
makes
at
sense.
all.
Okay. Thanks for helping me understand.
Then I would like to move the passage of Resolution 1555-21.
As soon as we check to see if there's any public comment, I'd be happy to do that. Thank you. I didn't want Caitlin to be raising her hand that I'd missed something. I am now ready for a second, if any member would care to second the motion.
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Tennis. I have a motion and a second. We have no more discussion, correct? Okay. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. That passes 4 yes, 1 absent. Thank you, Board. Okay, this is also you, Ms. Kissel, the number 3 on the resolution 1555-21, the declaring the futility of public bidding change order work on Pleasant Valley High School's career technical education project.
That's the one we just finished.
That's the one we just approved.
Yeah. So the next one's a resolution as well.
The next one is the lease, sublease agreement?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank
Ms.
you.
Kissel?
Good evening. I believe we have Katie Dobson on the Zoom. I'm grateful she's here with us tonight from Jones Hall. Jones Hall is our attorney on this matter. This item is Resolution 1553-21, and it is a mechanism to allow the district to borrow money using a lease sublease agreement. And if Katie can
We
come
can
on.
get Katie up on the Zoom, that'd be great. On the screen.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening, Katie. Go ahead.
Hi. So the resolution you have before you this evening relates to the purchase of a new piece of property that the district is considering. And as you know, there are certain restrictions on multi-year borrowing for school districts in California. One exception to that is voter-approved debt, like the district's bond measures. And another exception to that is a lease agreement. And so this is a mechanism that's widely used by public agencies in the state and allows the district to borrow not more than $2 million. I believe the current anticipated borrowing amount is expected to be $1.87 million. So this resolution authorizes the district to enter into this financing agreement for not to exceed $2 million. I believe that Makiko Sato of ISOM Advisors gave a presentation at last month's meeting with what the expected finances of this transaction are. And some of those numbers are also included as an appendix to the resolution before you. And the district is planning to use its RDA pass-through funding to make the debt service payments on this lease, but the lease will be secured by the general fund of the district. So I'm happy to answer any questions if there are any.
So all the language in this refers to Hooker Oak Elementary School, but your initial statement was, is this about using this money for the property that we had approved going after earlier?
Yes, so Hooker Oak is what we call the leased asset. And so in this financing structure, the district effectively leases Hooker Oak Elementary to the financing corporation, which is made up of the district's board members. And the corporation then subleases that back to the district for its use. And the right to receive the rental payments for that are assigned to a bank by the corporation, by the financing corporation. And then the bank gives all that money up front to the district, and the district then makes those debt service payments to the bank through the assignment by the corporation.
I think it was confusing to me because the language of it always referring to Hooker Oak made me think that we were going to spend the money on Hooker Oak, but that's not.
No,
what
the
we're
money can be spent on anything that the district wants to, and it has identified the purchase of this new piece of property. But Hooker Oak will be what we call the leased asset in the transaction.
Okay.
So it will essentially be encumbered. And you all may be familiar with certificates of participation. I know the district has entered into those previously, I believe back in 1996 and again in 2004. And so the district's financing corporation has been in existence since 1996 for this purpose. with assisting the district with financings. And you all have done a great job at keeping the corporation up to date and running the way that it's supposed to be running since 1996. So you still have it available to you to use, which is a great asset. But so Hooker Oak Elementary, what we will do is record this lease in the real property records of the county. And so you are prohibited from leasing it out for another purpose until this lease is paid off.
I think your explanation gives a lot of clarity to something that was quite murky. Thank you.
Okay, good. Yes, no problem.
Thank you.
Sure.
Julie, is that all the information you need to give us unless we have other questions?
Yes, it is.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any public comment, Madam Superintendent? We have no public comment. Do we have any motions associated with this item?
I move approval of Resolution 1553-21.
Thank you. We have a motion by Member Tennis and a second by Dr. Kaiser. No further questions? Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Thank you. That's 4 yes with 1 member absent. Okay, next we need to do a recess so that we can take care of business with that financing corporation that we just referred to. So we're going to officially go to recess and reconvene as the annual meeting of the Board of Directors of Chica Unified School District Financial Corporation. So we are in brief recess, and I have the, let me click on the stuff we need for the meeting. I don't have an attachment,
It's in a separate agenda.
It's a separate agenda item. So we need to
Okay,
approve the
thank
minutes of
you.
the annual meeting?
I need to call the meeting of the, where's the official title again? Yes, Chico Unified School District Financing Corporation is now called to order. Approval of the minutes of the last annual meeting, November 18th, 2020. Any questions on the minutes? Dr. Kaiser?
This is an odd question, and so hopefully our lawyer can answer this for us. Since we have 2 people that were not at that time on the board and 1 who was but is not here, can we vote on these minutes?
Yes, you can. The board makeup is not important for that.
Okay, thank you for that clarification.
Yeah, of course.
I move the passage of the minutes of 11/18/2020.
Thank you. I'll second that motion. Is there any public comment? Thank you. No public comment. Any other comment from the board members? No? Hearing none. Then I will call for a vote to approve the minutes of November 18th, 2020. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Passes 4 yes, 1 absent. Okay, Resolution 1554-21, and directing the execution of documents and certain related actions that, with respect to a lease financing for the Chica Unified School District. Do we have those?
Those documents are part of the agenda when you go to the agenda for the financing corporation. And Ms. Dobson wants to walk us through just briefly that this is really what we just approved under the
Right.
previous item.
Yes.
The duplicate.
This is the exact same thing, and it's the lease agreement, which provides for the lease and sublease, as I explained, and then the assignment agreement, which assigns the debt service payments to the bank, making the upfront payment to the district.
Thank you. Do I have any public comment? None. I am ready for a motion.
I will move Resolution 1554-21.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Motion by Dr. Kaiser, second by Member Dalby. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Okay, that's 4 yes, 1 absent. Thank you, Board. Okay, now going to adjourn the special meeting of the Financing Corporation. And it's adjourned, so we're now back to our regular agenda.
I feel like you should have had hats that you changed or something for that.
I'm sorry.
I said I feel like you should have had hats that you changed.
Yes,
you know, like, let's
we
put
need
our white hats on for
Take
this.
off our banker hats and put them back
Yeah,
on.
exactly.
Or
exactly.
hat with the
Maybe a
little
Monopoly
spinny
mustache.
thing on top of it. That would be fun. Okay. Why does it look like the first reading of the, we have board policies to,
Yes, we do have 2 board policies under 5.1.
yes.
And Ms. Keene is here and she can address them if there are questions. However, this is a first reading. These
Yes.
came about as a result of our involvement in the federal program monitoring, FPM. So I don't know, Tina, if you have any words of wisdom?
Well, periodically, there are new language additions that come to board policies that come out of Sacramento that we're obligated to include in our board policies. So this is an example of that, just a little bit of language added and shifted around. It is in draft form as it's your first read, and then second read, it will come back cleaned up, looking sharper, and we'll go from there. So the first one, and the only one I have, is the uniform complaint, new language added onto that board policy.
I see red language at the bottom of the conflict of interest. Oh, there it is, the board bylaws, 9270. No?
9270 is the conflict of interest, and that's a board bylaw. The 1312.3 is the uniform complaint procedure.
Correct.
And if you notice, there's quite a few crossed out and some red added in there.
That's what I was, oh, there it is.
And again, that's the example of the language that has, we've been asked to include in as an update.
Yep. Okay, we'll accept this as the first reading. There's no action to be taken. Correct?
Correct.
Okay.
I believe-
Thank you,
was there a
Board. And if you have any questions or wish to have something addressed at the second reading, you can submit it before the meeting. Yes, Mr. Tennis.
Basically, this is dealing with inappropriate behaviors, some sort of profiting on the part of board members, I guess.
Are you talking about the uniform complaint procedures or
This amendment, am I looking, conflict of interest?
The conflict of interest one, yes.
I mean, I just, like, receiving gifts and things like that, you know, like if we on the board are, you know, profiting from this in inappropriate ways.
Correct.
That's what this is about. And so
Yes.
what this would do is it would appropriate disciplinary action in accordance with some other laws that have already been written, or we would come up with those?
So this clarifies, and we already do have policies in place. There were just some minor changes that had to be made to the policy, to the board bylaws.
Okay. I'm
But,
going to follow staff's leadership on this completely, so.
Yeah, we are instructed on what things we need to keep track of and report, which we do. We occasionally do have things that we must report, and we take care of it. This is not, it's unusual that we ever go over the limit of what we are allowed to receive in the way of a gift, but we are made aware of it at each time that something like that occurs. So yeah, they take care of us. Okay, the first reading, no more questions, board members? Okay, thank you. Our next thing, I believe, is the request, board member request to agendize an item. Do we have any requests from members? Okay, hearing none. We will adjourn to closed session.
And if I could ask the board, before we go into closed session, Erica needs to get some signatures, so
Okay.
sign whatever Erica asks you to sign, and then
Okay, thank you. We will take care of Erica. Thank you.